Hello there and welcome back to another review. Today we're going to be having a look at Hand of Death, or I think it was sometimes known as Countdown to Kung Fu or In Kung Fu, made back in 1976. I've got it here on this double Blu-ray here with Last Hurrah for Chivalry. We'll get round to reviewing that movie as well, but we're looking at Hand of Death, both directed by John Woo. And what is funny with this film is when you look at it on paper, you get a great cast with this movie. Hand of Death, like when you look at the team that is obviously, like I mentioned, you got John Woo was still trying to make his mark, but at the same time, so sort of was everybody involved at the time of what was going on. I mean, this was 1976, so it's very early on. Like I've mentioned, in terms of Jackie Chan, 2 years before Snake and the Eagle's Shadow. Sammo was still very much sort of working with Huang Feng at the time. So they were all together trying to make like where they were going in the industry, but everyone here involved was trying to get in, if you know what I mean. So we have Jackie Chan, we have Yuen Bu, we have Yuen Wah, we have Sammo Hung, who was also worked as the fight choreographer here. We have James Tien, and say what you will about the film, but what you get with this film, whether you like it or not, is you get some amazing people in this movie, and that of course will go on to do so much more amazing substantial work in later years. Our lead here is played by Dorian Tao-liang, who was always sometimes known as Flash Legs Tan, or he went by certain things like that. Though he never had much in the way of charisma, he did make up for that, of course, in his fighting and in his kicking ability. I remember having a film he was in VHS called, there was one of his I had, Hot, the Cool and the Vicious. I had that. I remember watching that a lot. And he was one of these people, like I say, he didn't necessarily have a lot of charisma, but he did have a lot in terms of sort of kicking and kung fu abilities. So, not sure if any of you out there remember sort of who he was, Tao-liang. I'm not sure if any of you remember sort of some of these movies, but like at the time, like I say, you have to remember like Jackie Chan and people like they were not necessarily top drawer at the box office at that point. Jackie Chan was very much still trying to make a name for himself. Chan, like Sam and the rest of the cast, were eager to prove themselves. Chan had a starring vehicle called Little Tiger from Canton at this point that was shelved and not released until 1979. Jackie was taking basically in any work he could. I believe Jackie did get severely injured on this movie. I think he was meant to fly back whilst being pulled by the crew and ended up hitting his head on a rock or something and was knocked unconscious. And it's amazing when you think, like I say, what Jackie Chan went on to do, and sort of, what John Woo especially went on to do. And like here they are, 1976, working together, trying to, make a film together. And when you think Jackie Chan worked with John Woo, yeah, he did work with John Woo. And but Hand of Death, it's not perfect. I will say that right away. It's not. I think out of the two films included here, I think Last Hurrah for Chivalry is a better movie. But I will review that in a separate video. But I think going back to the inside, I think he was meant to sort of like fly back, and like I say, he got knocked out or something like that. Because basically Jackie Chan is one of these people, or from when I've read various books and interviews or what I've seen, Jackie Chan in that period, where he would do anything. He would do, if like, as we know, he done the stunt in Fist of Fury, but Jackie Chan was very much take on any stunt job that was there to like sort of more work, get him known. One job would lead to another, that kind of thing. Whilst you could say this movie is somewhat average at best, following many kung fu traits and plot threads and beats that many other movies were doing, it's very clear this is a film of a filmmaker who is in the workings and still learning his craft. John Woo himself having studied under Chang-Chi from Shaw Brothers. So as the film begins, we learn that Xiu Xiaofeng, played by James Chen, was born in Shaolin and gone back on his word and ambushes the pupils and the abbot of the Shaolin Temple. One thing you notice right away is the size of Sammo Hung's massive false teeth in this movie. For some reason, John Woo wanted Sammo Hung as goofy as possible in this movie. So Sammo Hung's teeth in this film are a sight to behold. They really are. I mean, they are so overkill. His teeth are horrendously huge, but it can be a bit distracting. So at its core, the whole film is about bringing this sort of traitor and defector played by James Tien to justice. So as mentioned, Tao-liang is our lead here, playing Yun Fei, and as the dialogue says in the movie, he is the only one up to the job. As always, he's the only guy that can do the job, to get the job done. Jackie is listed in the credits as I think Chan Yun Lung, I think he's listed as. You will see Yun viewing a lot of the fight sequences here and doing a lot of the stunt work, even at the start when Tan is showing off his bow staff. So Yun Fei is sent down the mountain to deal with the traitor and must find a guy called Chang Yi, and must go to White Rock and find one of his disciples. He then meets Jackie and rides on the back of his horse and cart. They find a hanging body, which may be from Shaolin, which Jackie burns. So you think things are forming and happening, and then Jackie sort of ditches Tao-liang at this point. Like, you think, okay, Jackie's there, and then he sort of disappears. And I say, this is a very, very young Jackie Chan. I mean, he was 22 at the time this was made. So a character called Chi Q is about to be beheaded for leading a rebellion in the town square, and his followers come in to save him. Fight breaks out, of course. He escapes and hides in like this inn with Tan. After seeing his skills, Sammo character Tu Ching, I think Sammo plays, says to Yun Fei, come and work for us. So the guy was going to be beheaded is recuperating. I'm guessing everyone outside and his followers got killed at this point. I assume that's what happened. So this guy's sort of recuperating. So whilst in the inn, Tan sees this guy with a sword and a flute. Then we have a flashback of him at a brothel, and there's a close thing going on with like one of the workers there at the brothel. James, Tien and Sammo turn up, and James wants her too, like Autumn Moon, I think her name is. So this is all like flashback. James Tien wants the same girl as this other guy does, and in the altercation, the swordsman accidentally stabs her. And he is known as the prodigal son of Jing Chan, and has like forever sheathed his sword kind of thing. Like, he won't, after what happened, he's not going to use his sword again. And like with with what later he would expand upon in Better Tomorrow, you do get that sense in this film of brotherhood, of like this group of people that have come together, this ragtag crew that have come together, or brothers in arms, so to speak. Something that John Woo's films would later rely quite heavily upon. But it's very much in play here as well, even as early as 1976. So he accidentally stabbed, so he doesn't want to use his sword ever again. So Tan reveals to Chuko he is from the Shaolin Temple, and all the while you aren't quite sure what the innkeeper is up to. He does like the odd suspicious look here and there. You're not sure if he's like a good guy or a bad guy. Is he on his side? You're not really 100% sure. He does like a suspicious look at one point. So still looking for Chang Yi, Yun Fei goes to Sammo's and says he wants to work for him and pretends he captured like Chu. So Tan won't bow to Chi Chao Fang, and he's like, you are brave, no one has ever spoke to me like that, and wants him to kill Chu and prove himself. So he's taken his prisoner to like James Tien. James Tien, well, nobody's ever not bowed to me. If you're that, kill him, like, I'm not sure quite what their plan was at this point. I'm not really sure what the master plan was. I mean, they're totally surrounded. Okay, he's pretended he's caught the guy they're after. I'd like to sort of be in favour with them, but I don't know how they plan to get out of it. I had no idea what his plan was. He's totally surrounded. So Chu dies after being beaten, has his sort of general start on him too. As we expected, the innkeeper is one of the baddies. Chu Xiaofeng can beat Yun Fei easy. Notice you see Yun Ha here as well as one of the villains wielding a spear. Tan gets to show off his kicks, which he's a great kicker. He's a phenomenal kicker. I always, like I mentioned, like in Warriors 2, with terms of kickers, you're talking like Casanova Wong, talking great kickers from Hong Kong movies, John Liu, Huang Jianli, Tao-liang in here is another one. So I say, the innkeeper is one of the baddies. Yun Hua turns up. We have a guy here with like a rope dart, and it's all fun stuff. And when you look at this movie with the landscape, and most of it's on location, the whole movie, especially in HD, it really does look good. And it really, when I was watching this film recently on this Blu-ray, the whole film is so green. Like, it really is. It gives off it really does show off the countryside and everything really well. So James Tien wants to know Chang Yi's hideout. Hang Yun Fei's upside down and gets one of his men to beat him. Somebody's like, look, like, they've captured Tao-liang and they've got him upside down, and Sammo's like, look, just tell us, then this will all stop, this will all be over. So randomly out of nowhere, Jackie comes in to help him just at the exact moment that Yun Fei is untying he's untying his own feet. And now, not one of the 50 guards in the courtyard notices Jackie sneaking in or Tan escaping. Like, for some reason, he is to the side, and all the guards are like sort of looking the other way. Like, he's in the main courtyard, he's hanging upside down. Jackie's able to sneak in there, carry him out, but none of the guards in the courtyard and where they are actually even notice that this is happening and taking place. Surely, when you have a prisoner or a captive, the idea would be to keep a visual on them at all the time, just in case there is a breakout and something happens. But no, they, for whatever reason, they got him upside down. Sammo's with him, and then all the guards and everybody like keeping watch. They, for whatever reason, turn the other way. So yeah, they get him out. So when Sammo sees that he has escaped, he's like, oh, he must have an accomplice. Why must he have an accomplice? He was untying his own feet. I mean, he's right. Don't get me wrong, but how did he know that he must have an accomplice? Just because he has escaped doesn't mean somebody helped him. Do you know what I mean? So we learn that James Tien killed Jackie's older brother. Jackie this whole time has been playing the fool and just waiting for his time for revenge. He also mentioned that they need a swordsman to deal with the path ahead. Jackie's a spearsman in this film. So Dorian Tan randomly finds the prodigal son of the tea shack and he joins their cause. Jackie gets to work on reforging his swords. You see what I mean about that notion of like brothers forming together, forming this alliance to deal with a greater threat. So themes that would later, John Woo would play on in his later movies. The whole idea is they want to beat like Shi Xiaofang's White Crane's soul-chasing fist, as it is known in the movie. If you can get all that out, I'm surprised I said that in one go, but yeah, that's what they're trying to defeat. Which, let's face it, is an awesome name. White Crane's soul-chasing fist. Cue the montage of them training and Jackie working on the guy's sword. So Tan meets Chang-yi, played by John Woo himself, using the password that Chu gave him earlier. So as mentioned, you see Yeung in many shots, none more memorable than when James Tien is practicing his archery skills. I always remember Yeung being in this shot, and Yeung takes an arrow right through the chest. So Feng Maobel's his generals, our heroes playing their moment to strike and their strategy attack the garrison gate, with Jackie taking them on with a spear. So at one point Jackie stays behind to give comrades a chance so he can help his comrades and also so he can get revenge. And I was sure he was going to die here. Like I knew probably Jackie Chan was going to die in this movie, as like characters often do in John Woo movies. But Jackie sort of stays behind. And I was sure he was going to die, but he actually does win and prevail, though he does get stabbed in the fight shortly after and drops down dead. So I knew it was coming. I was just wrong about when it was coming. So Sammo informs Xiaofang about the diversion. John Woo's character in this can't fight at all, much like in real life, actually, not necessarily a kung fu guy. I don't think John Woo ever had any kung fu training. I could be completely... I know he's sort of an understudy of Shang-Chi, but I don't think he was a kung fu guy. I don't think that was John Woo. I don't think that was... I don't think that he was ever into the kung fu, in real life. So to Ching, Sammo gets disguised as a fisherman so we can ambush our heroes. John Woo's character has this map. We learn that two of the people that were helping the cause are actually traitors too, and they killed the swordsman. The film, even for its earlier, still touches, like I mentioned, on that John Woo traits of brothers banding together, loyalty, a common enemy. Some real amazing locations in the movie too, especially in the fight where Yun Fei is fighting Sammo on like a bank next to a river. Worth mentioning as well that loads of vessels and jars around that they can smash and break just because it looks good on camera. Let's have loads of vessels and jars just hanging around on this like riverbank, and why not? 'Cause then we can just smash them up and it looks really good on film. So he kills Sammo, and at the end fight has to be Dorian versus James Tien, of course. Some nice fast fist combos here and there, and I love how at one point they does like a 1.4 slow motion kicks in a row on Xiaofang that are all different in execution. And naturally, of course, James Tien gets his neck broken. He's got the bad guy has to get his neck broken. Then Tan just sort of rides off into the sunset. Now I've gone through that relatively quickly because Hand of Death, I remember, like I say, especially back in the VHS days, so many films, even if Jackie Chan was in it for just 5 minutes, right? If Jackie Chan was in the film for 5 minutes, if it's a VHS, Jackie's name was plastered all over the front of the box, right? Island on Fire was another one. Jackie Chan, supporting role, he was labelled as a Jackie Chan film. The Lucky Stars movies, Jackie Chan, again, supporting role, it was labelled as a Jackie Chan film. Same with Hand of Death. I always remember it was one I picked up sort of later on, you know, when I was collecting, because I always had the impression, even though I was very young at the time and I didn't know the, you know, Hand of Death that well, but I always got the impression that he's probably not going to be in that film a lot. That probably, I could tell by the cover that this probably isn't going to be, you know, a Jackie Chan movie throughout the whole runtime. I mean, is this film a classic? Not by any means. You know, I think, but I think what it is, it's an important film. I think there are some things to enjoy here. You get a great cast of kung fu stars and a director who would go on to do, you know, directors and stars who would go on to do much, much bigger, better things and exciting things. You get early performances from Jackie, Sammo with his massive teeth, which is worth watching the film for alone, because, like I say, these teeth are just overkill. These are completely the biggest butt teeth you've ever seen. James Tien is reliable as ever as the villain. Yeung, I think, doubling for a lot of, if not most of the stunt work. And like I say, not a classic. Hand of Death or Countdown in Kung Fu is not a classic. But it's not without its charm about it. There is a certain charm running through the movie. It just follows many of the same traits that other Kung Fu movies were doing, unfortunately. Like I mentioned in my Iron Fisted Monk review, I think a lot of the times when filmmakers were sort of starting out, when any filmmaker sort of starts out, they sort of always have to play it somewhat safe. You know, you can't be necessarily too radical. You look at even like somebody like Quentin Tarantino with Reservoir Dogs, like basically that is City on Fire, or there's a lot of elements borrowed from City on Fire. So you know, you have to sort of play it safe, and especially with kung fu movies, I think they couldn't deteriorate too much from what was going on with other movies at the time, because otherwise I think there was that fear that they would just isolate local audiences completely. You know, so they did have to play it safe, but at the same time trying to inject something different into it. Like I say, Iron Fisted Monk follows very generic plot things. Hand of Death does as well, but again, like I mentioned with this movie, you do get a real sense of the brotherhood theme running through it, that idea of, like I say, people coming together, people that wouldn't have joined forces otherwise, but coming together to deal with a greater enemy. And like I say, you get a great cast. The kung fu is not great, but it's okay. Now, like I say, with Sammo Hung choreographing, he was still learning as well. They was all sort of figuring it out. They was all very young at the time. And Hand of Death is real, as I say, watch it if you know your Hong Kong movie stars and you know, like, sort of, you know, some of the classic performers and stunt performers. You'll see a lot of people in Hand of Death here, but not a classic, but it's worth watching just for the sake. You get Sammo Hung, John Woo, Jackie Chan, you know, Yeung's there, Yuen Wah's there, James Chen's there. So yeah, check it out and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Hand of Death, if you think it's a good movie, if you think it's sort of an average movie, what you think about it. As I say, I will get round to reviewing Last Hurrah for Chivalry next, which I think is a much superior movie. But there's a lot to be said about that one as well. But yeah, if you haven't seen Hand of Death, check it out for some very early Jackie Chan, John Woo, Kung Fu hijinks. So thank you very much indeed for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.